Good morning and God bless. Let me start with an apology. You, me, all of us, we all caught an STD. We're all walking around sick. Now, one person in this world can elude this fact, but I'm here to cure you of that STD. And before I do, let me ask you, how uncomfortable does that make you feel? Because an STD, where I'm from, on the Y.O.U rules, is a spiritually transmitted disease. Did I make you real uncomfortable yet? STDs, spiritually transmitted diseases, and the plague of consciousness. You didn't just catch it, you copied it. You thought you had free will. But what if the choices you made were infected? What if that lust wasn't yours, but handed down, encoded, and passed forward? What if your independent thoughts were actually plagiarized spirits from a virus you never knew you caught? This ain't generational trauma. This is a spiritual transmitted disease. Warning: this transmission exposes systemic contamination. Side effects may include subconscious habits that don't match your values, repeating toxic behavior in relationships you swore you healed from, false freedom that feels liberating but leads to spiritual erosion, chronic emotional fatigue from battles you never agreed to fight, and sudden spikes in temptation, rebellion, or performative spirituality. Welcome to Raw for Epoch 2, day 139. Some of y'all think y'all struggling with sin, but what you really caught was somebody else's sickness. And if you don't run this audit now, you'll pass it on like it's your personality. Let's get into our concept overview of the day. You didn't just learn it, you inherited it. You were not born with that addiction, nor that disease. You didn't create that insecurity. You didn't invent that coping mechanism. You absorbed it. You mirrored it. You caught it like a code. STDs in this system equal spiritually transmitted diseases. Subconscious programs infected through exposure, encrypted through trauma, and activated by permission. Yeah, you may not have started it, but you allowed it to persist. They live in thoughts. They hide in habits. They disguise as personality. And unless you re-record the system, you'll replicate what infected you. Here's what you'll learn: what a spiritually transmitted disease is and how they are coded. Why spiritual sickness is relational before behavioral. How your subconscious replicates inherited dysfunction. Why silence is the #1 transmission vector for STDs. And how to spiritually sterilize your system without suppressing your past. You might want to keep 6 feet distance from a lot of people after this one. Maybe even yourself. Maybe even the mirror. Let's get into our visual metaphor, the infected flash drive. Picture this. Immerse yourself. Close your eyes if it makes you feel better. Definitely keep that one eye open today. You get handed a flash drive with family photos. You plug it into your laptop. You don't even open the file. But the virus is already inside your system. That is how spiritual transmission works. You don't have to sin. You didn't have to agree. You just had to interface. That is why who you are around matters. That is why your childhood still haunts you. That is why you keep downloading confusion, even though you think you're the one typing the code. Let's get into my personal perspective and think about how one day I was on the bowl and STDs hit me. Here's the addiction I almost inherited in silence. And God bless, this is not to judge. I hate to talk about this out loud because I don't want to make it seem like I'm looking for a sob story or some internet sympathy. My father never around. You know that already if you know me. But I'll never forget what he left me. He was probably the smartest man I've ever encountered. The dude was legit, genius level mind. He got accepted into every elite high school that required an entrance exam. That's pretty cool, especially in the Bronx in New York. Those tests are not easy. He joined the Air Force, could have built an empire, but instead he chose addiction. And y'all, I once watched him sleep for like 5 straight days. Didn't eat, didn't speak, didn't move. 5 full days. My grandmother, who was his mother, was the only one who checked on him. And on day 3, she came out of his room, looked at me standing in the hallway and smiled at me. She said, yo, he hasn't even gotten up to use the bathroom. And she said it with a smile, laughed it off like it was nothing. Really, what do you expect her to do? Because that's what we do when we don't know how to confront spiritual disease. But I was watching. I was studying the silence. This brilliant man turned his back on everything. His career, his wife, his child. Well, it was me, right? But he didn't just abandon me. He abandoned himself. And I remember making a promise to myself. I'll never be an addict. Can't be like that. Won't be me. But then I woke up one day, infected, in my mid-30s. And I realized I already was. Addicted to alcohol, to secrecy, to the image I built, to the silence I wore, to the systems I submitted to so I could keep winning in every room I walked into. And boom, it hit me right in the chest. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a story worth telling. I was him. Same plague, different substance, but worst in one key way. Yeah, my father was absent. He was gone, never around. Easy to miss him. But I was presently absent. I was there, but not there. Hugging my kids while being emotionally invisible. I was performing family life while hiding an achievement. I was translucent, awake but unconscious, breathing but not present. And one night, after a binge, bourbon, more bourbon, chased with rum and coke, I felt it. Divine whisper, the voice that doesn't yell but lands. Yo, spend more time with your wife and kids. And so I cracked right there. And thank God. Because I realized I was passing the plague, not through absence, but through presence without intention. Some of us are there, but aren't really there. A spiritual STD disguised as responsibility. A generational virus hidden in success. My son hit me with the crazy question. Yo, Dad, what's your biggest regret, man? And I told him. It took me over 10 years of fatherhood to understand the kind of father I needed to be. And it took me nearly 20 years of being with your mother to finally become the man she deserved. I know that I don't sell t-shirts, but for me, that's no excuses, no scapegoats, just the truth. You see, we don't always know we're infected, but symptoms show up in silence, in repetition, In love, we forget to give. In pain, we forget to process. But through the grace and mercy of God, the infinite, the creator, life. The same way we inherit dysfunction, we can inherit deliverance. Now I govern my house through presence. I father through structure. I lead through remembrance. And I choose the spiritual symptoms I pass on with the cheesy things like the smiles, the hugs, the tears, every moment of silence. Because if I don't consciously choose what I transmit, I will unconsciously spread what tried to destroy me. And I refuse to baptize my bloodline in the disease that almost kept me dead while breathing. Let's check the chat and figure out who's in here talking about their spiritually transmitted disease. STDs. Significant. I always talk about our ability to empower ourselves is to understand that we got ourselves here, because if it wasn't us who got us here, it is not us that can take us where we believe we need to go. But this is also sort of your moment, if you would, if with respect to the realization of where you're at in life, that if somehow you didn't get yourself there, then accept that you were infected. We can accept we weren't shown any better. We can accept we weren't shown no different. We can accept that we were passed down trauma loops. We can accept the unfathomable. We can accept that we are infected. And that everything being net, if you had an opportunity to restart, you'd probably delete everything that has happened to you to this moment in time. Cool. Done. You were infected. You're still infected. What do you do now? Because once seen, it can't be unseen. Once you accept it, there's no more left to process about what is infecting you. If it continues to infect you, you are allowing the infection to persist, to permeate, and to perpetuate. Up until that juncture, you can be ignoring through straight, flagrant, and blatant, blissful ignorance. And this is empowering in that way, except that you caught a disease. Somebody breathed broke-based poverty mindset onto you. Somebody breathed and sneezed and coughed generational curses. Someone was an addict. Someone mistreated your legacy. And that's all you were exposed to. It's natural. You were imprinted with it. Now what? Because at minimum, left to do nothing, you're now infecting everybody else. And that to me is selfish. It ain't just about you, dog. And when it ain't, you can make it bigger than you. You can stop giving yourself excuses. You can also help cure yourself. And at minimum, if you don't want to do anything else but ensure the most individual bliss, you can ensure you don't affect nobody else. That to me is worth living for. I get the complexities. I get that there's massive depth to this. I get that this is emotional beyond rationalization. But this is magnanimous to me from the perspective of we all can have an impact in this way to the collective. The way that we can transmit diseases is the way we can transmit cures. The way we can transmit fear is the way we can transmit love. Hate, delight. Failure, winning. Brokenness, abundance. Poverty, utopia. You can contribute at any capacity. It starts with self. Let's get into the Black Book System teachings, because this got quite the meat on it. Okay. Spiritually transmitted diseases. What is a spiritually transmitted disease? A spiritually transmitted disease is a subconscious behavioral program that was absorbed through emotional or spiritual exposure and passed through repetition, intimacy, trauma, or silence. The spread is systemic. STDs spread through witnessing trauma or pattern exposure, withholding, never confronting it, worshiping, justifying it as love or who I am, whispering, passing it off with secrecy or sarcasm. You don't have to sin, whatever that is, to pass it. You just have to accept it as normal. A spiritually transmitted disease is not just a habit, it's a subconscious possession. Yo, that's why it feels unfathomable. Both that we have it and then to overcome it. You literally have to rebuke this from your soul. It's deep. We go as far as I can take it so far into consciousness and the power it offers you. An STD is subconscious possession. Fear, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, trauma, brokenness, poverty has possessed you. Do you get that? And you wondering why you can't shake it. Because all you do, you sweat, you bleed, you cough, you sneeze. Poverty, brokenness, fear. You emit it, you emote it, you live it, you think it, you breathe it. Then you inhale it and you exhale it. It's real. Look around you. Look around you. All the confirmation you need is in the mirror from what you see for yourself and what's around you. Consciousness, your spiritual firewall. Consciousness is your internal border patrol, your interoperability protocol. We also talked about SIP, right? Spiritual interoperability protocol. The moment you become fully aware of an emotional loop, you create the possibility to override it. That is why we talk about the polarities, the spectrum you're on. When I become aware of how broke I am, it's because I'm simultaneously aware of how rich I could be. How would you know you're broke? Because you taste rich, but you don't move towards rich. You move back towards broke. You don't move towards courage. You move towards fear. You don't move towards love. You move towards hate. So you become aware of it. You rehearse it. You live it. But in that way, that's the possibility to override it. And that's the danger of unconscious living. Most people don't think their patterns, they feel their way back to them. They let their emotions parent their thoughts, and they call it intuition. I just know this is going to happen because it always happens to me. Yeah, it sure does. It sure does. Had a conversation just yesterday. Why are you so zen and optimistic? Why are you so down and pessimistic? People don't like those responses. How can you identify me as optimistic? Because you're viewing me pessimistically. Do you not get that? You don't, because you're dead consciously. You're unconscious. You caught a disease, an STD. It's called pessimism. So they let their emotions parent their thoughts, believing it's intuition. I'm so wise. I have all this applied knowledge. Yeah, you're infected and you never got a cure. They believe what feels right must be their truth. Even when that truth was infected by fathers or mothers or an environment's silence, a culture's conditioning or a trauma they never reauthored. Yes, it was traumatic. Yo, I've been through it. Enough of it. Not as deep, not as terrible. I don't deserve any likes, subscribes, or acknowledgments for it. It was just life. So yeah, you went through deeper trauma. Cool. You gonna stay there? Are you not gonna reauthor a new chapter and verse? And a lot of us do it too with the wins. Got invited to a softball game this Saturday. Couldn't make it. Why? I had things to do with my family. Like just be there, smile, laugh, enjoy time, meals, do things. The standard stuff. This dude was like, y'all made me feel like I was 20 again. Yeah, my G, you almost 50. Those home runs you were hitting, they don't happen anymore. Some of you still flaunting that championship ring from high school. That was 30 years ago. It's not always obvious trauma. The father who was silent, who was an addict. I was doing the math. I said this before in the projects. I was having this conversation with a gentleman, older, grandfather year age. He was a transit worker. He talked about the projects he grew up in. I think he grew up in Spanish Harlem. They had 18 floors. Where I was from, we had 14 floors. They went through letters A through H, A, B, C. So it would be 8A, 8B, 8C, 8D, 8E, 8, and on, right? All the way from 1 to 14. So his went up to 18. You take the floors, 14 times 8. That's 112. I'll make the math simple. 100. 14 floors, 1,400 apartments, yo. On average, 3 people there. It's probably more like 4, closer to 5. I'll say 3. I'll say 2. I'll make it even. 3,000 people per building. There's a lot of people in the projects. Why do I think that's relevant? I'm not the only one that's seen some shit. And then your radius for consciousness is like your block. Like your block is the only poverty-driven block. Like your family is the only difficult family that went through difficulty. Like you're the only one passing off diseases. That's how it spreads so crazy. You think you're the only one. Cool. So you pass it on. And you reinforce it. And you accept it back into your life to validate yourself. You validate your trauma. This always happens to me. I'm sure it does. The plague of consciousness. This is the deeper disease. The plague is not an emotion. It's a feedback loop that rewards dysfunction with survival. The world ain't that terrible. I know there's some things going on, but most people aren't addicted to sin. They're addicted to steady state regression. They're not triggered by growth. They're threatened by the loss of their lowest self. Yo, I'm going to repeat that. It's massive. Most people are not triggered by growth. They're threatened by the loss of their lowest self. You don't want to lose what you got, like it's everything, and like it's all, and like there's what? Nothing else for you to get? That's why transformation hurts more than trauma. You have no growth arc. Because trauma gives you an excuse to stay sick. All this happened to me and it keeps happening to me, so I got some things to complain about today. And the more you complain, God will give you more to complain about. Healing gives you no way out. The plague of consciousness says, stay who you were. Because now that's who you are. It's safer. But the protocol says, if it ain't sealed, don't spread it. The plague of consciousness equates to forfeited spirit. When you don't command your consciousness, your spirit submits to whatever stimulus speaks the loudest. And when your spirit isn't steering, your system starts sourcing truth from convenience. And now you start to put the puzzle together. You start to see all these things that, yep, see, my intuition, my thoughts, this always happens. And you only train to see what keeps that truth your truth. The same works on the other way. Push towards growth and abundance and richness for your life in dollars, in physical, in relationship, in career, in whatever. Watch what happens if you stay on that path. You'll see the opposite. You'll see the death of your soul and you'll be like, nah, I don't want that because I'm too addicted to being here. I'm cured. I'm healed. I don't want to spread no more diseases. That is why unhealed people confuse comfort with clarity. That's why spiritual drift feels peaceful until it's punished. Spirit is your seal, but consciousness is your steering wheel. We talk a lot about you're on autopilot. Autopilot implies what? There's a vehicle moving. That's you, your physical being. It's being driven, your physical body, mind, body, spirit. Why do we talk about these things? Because in order to move yourself forward consciously, you got to be spirited. And if you don't consciously re-record your identity daily, you'll subconsciously re-download what nearly killed you. Let's talk about the cure. We know we're giving out STDs, made us feel all uncomfortable. That's the shirt I'm going to sell. Spiritually transmitted diseases. We know the plague of consciousness. We know this hurts your spirit. We know the trauma loops. The cure then is remembrance-driven consciousness. True healing is not behavior change. It's system override through spiritual remembrance. When consciousness is aligned with spirit, emotion becomes a signal, not a sentence. Thought becomes a tool, not a tyrant. Imagine how many more thoughts are you going to put yourself through that regress you, that hurt you, that dilute your spirit. And wonder why you can't find a solution. You're your own self-tyrant. Action becomes covenant, not performance. You stop outsourcing your truth to trends, traumas, or titles. And you start building from what God, root, source, the infinite encoded in you before the sickness ever touched you. Yo, I believe this deeply with spirit. We're going to get into the consequences of inaction. Your spirit, before it was infected, is available to you. It's just the friction of going through all the memories, all the experiences, all the wisdom, all the incidents that have occurred in life, right, wrong, or indifferent. Because you're not only were you imprinted on that made you believe you were who you were culturally or in some direction, in all phases and facets, it's available to you for your spirit with your 2-block radius, right? That's one of the things my wife talk about, trying to make sure that we do for our children. And it's not that we're losing time, but they're getting older. How do you culture them? How do you expose them to more environments, more ways of doing things, more possibilities? Not just the disease of the plague of generational curses that we were exposed to. And I don't want to dismiss or suggest that anybody in your generation, in your lineage, didn't try. It's just a lot of us don't ever wake up to this. Nobody's out here, and I'm not saying that that's what I'm doing. Sometimes I question what I'm doing, right? But who's waking us up? Who's waking us up without selling something? And I get it. I got to sell too. But if we aren't awake, that means we're still at the wheel and we're all the way asleep. That's why I don't say you're in your subconscious. You're unconscious. You can't be conscious. Watch people move. I talk about this regularly. I observe and I try not to react. I try my best to respond to the things that go on. They are crazy. But I watch people. I'm like, yo, you can't be thinking. I listen to people when they talk to me. I'm like, yo, you can't be thinking. There's no way. You think you're thinking. Those aren't even your thoughts. You're infected from inception. Your soul was scarred. You never even try to, you talk about battlefield medicine. The world, like we're at conscious war. And I mean that respectfully because, I don't want to, war is, there's a lot of tragedy involved there. But imagine consciously that somebody hits you with a shotgun in your chest. And you're trying to put like a tourniquet and a Band-Aid over it. You're just trying to stop the bleeding. You're going to bleed out eventually. And at some point, the pain became so difficult, it numbs you. You know, our bodies have a tolerance for that. You can be tortured so much that the body feels so much pain, it just goes numb. Consciousness. Somebody blew a hole in your consciousness. Like that's that CTE, that disease, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, I think it is, where your brain takes so many hits, it starts to lose matter. Yo, it's real, at least from the scans I've seen and the studies I've done. Somebody blew a hole in your consciousness. You can't patch it. That's a perfect segue into our consequences of inaction. The consequences of inaction. You'll pass trauma as legacy and call it personality. You'll silence yourself until you believe your own lie. I always tell the truth, even when I lie. You'll keep attracting broken people because you're still broadcasting brokenness. Yo, you ever look at a circle of broke people talking broke, complaining? They all have the same issues. Their bosses suck. They don't get paid enough. The block is always hot. The welfare line of life don't give enough. They're entitled to so much. That's the action you're taking, to broadcast brokenness, and you're wondering why you keep receiving broke. You're like, but I prayed. I asked God for the lotto ticket. And God is like, yeah, I heard you. It's just you keep behaving broke, acting like you want to be rich. So I'm confused. Actually, I'm not that confused. I see you be broke more than I see you be rich. You're sick. You got the spiritually transmitted disease of brokenness. Fronting like you want to be rich. You'll mistake comfort for peace and call it balance. Check this shit out. You'll become a spiritual super spreader, infecting everybody you love. And worst of all, you'll wake up one day and realize you never lived clean. Not because you didn't want to, but because you didn't know how to detox what you inherited. I'm giving you the freebie today. It wasn't you that got you there, but only you can take yourself where you gotta go. Here's how to lock daily remembrance. Quarantine your inputs. Scan every conversation, every habit, every person in proximity. Ask, is this code mine or passed to me? We went through COVID, right? As a culture. Sometimes you still go in the stores and they still got the stickers on the floor, stand 6 feet. You got to put like, I don't keep any, I can't even see people in my proximity who don't speak how I speak, flow how I flow. Money, right? I just had to cut my daughter's at the dentist. I don't know how money came up. It came up. And he said, yeah, I know how uncomfortable it is to talk about money. You know, my wife and I said, excuse me, my wife and I talk money fluently and regularly and in a bliss way all the time. I have no qualms talking about money. I'm just careful about who I talk money with. Because if you're like, nah, you got to be careful. And no, I don't want to talk to you. That's broke mindset to me. If you call me to complain, you first of all, you got to be close enough to me to complain. I'm going to ask some very basic questions. Yo, are you looking for me to just listen? You want to just vomit on me because you need to release? That's cool. Yeah, sometimes I feel that way. I vomit on God all the time. Or are you looking for me to help provide a solution? You want some of my wisdom? Do you need, maybe I can help? Do you want me to offer? Nah. All right, cool. Everybody, one of my wife's aunt's husband, he calls it a gold card. I give almost everybody within proximity who deserves to be in proximity a gold card. Give you one shot to however you want to do it. You come back again with the same business, and it doesn't align with what I'm doing, you got to go. You get blocked. I don't even block people. I just don't pick up. I don't answer. I don't reply back. Because I don't want to be infected. I'm not also naive. I am susceptible. I'm vulnerable. I've been imprinted on in a way that suggests addiction. I have a massively addictive personality. I can't have enough of whatever I want. When I want something, I want as much. I want all of it. So if it's sin derived, whatever that is, if it's fear derived, broke, poverty based consciousness, I will indulge and be the most brokest, poverty driven dude you've ever seen in your life. And the same is true on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I ask, first of all, what's in my proximity? Is this code mine or passed to me? And the reality, too, I was just reading today, a lot of what we see today is information that was thought of, considered, dissected, evaluated, and passed on generations before us. It takes a while to adopt things, especially new ideas, new philosophies, new approaches. I think the very easy baseline is religion and God. The dogma that existed hundreds of years ago is very, like, you couldn't question God in certain ways hundreds of years ago. You can now. The first people who did it didn't go too well. Even the first people who were trying to bring over certain religions didn't go too well. Well, we know Jesus was crucified, right? How about that? Why? People thought they were being infected. They were. He infected them with the possibility that God is all of us. I digress from that because I don't want to get dogmatic, and I don't want to, that's not what I'm here to do today. Point being, we are a generation that has evolved from many other generations with information that has already been thought, processed. We are now living it and expanding it, and our requirement for continued evolution is to take what we know and grow it. That's everybody's charge. Leave the world a better place. Why? Because there will be generations after you. And if you could come outside of yourself and think, man, God created this beautiful universe, the infinite whatever. There's going to be kids that come behind me. Maybe they're mine. Maybe they're my kids. Like, do you not really want them to have, like, so we imagine hundreds of years ago, you don't think that's what the charge was? Let's create some safety. Let's create some harmony, some unity. Let's profit. All these things are significant. My point, before I lose the context, it's likely passed to you because not many of us can think new thoughts the way we like to think. Drop the ego a little bit. But you take what was passed to you and make it yours. My father taught me addiction. Now I'm super addicted to making sure I can be the best possible father, the best possible husband, the best everything I do, right? Then you want to confront the silent carriers. Any pain you don't talk about is still transmitting. Bring it to God. Journal it. Call it by name. Get it out. Then you want to rebuild emotional immunity through prayer. Excuse me. Pattern and presence. You build your new chemical signature by choosing clean highs. You don't just say you're healed. You re-record the action. Perfect segue into our covenant loop. Audit, remix, re-record. You got the call. Boop. No, that's not it. Now move like it's recorded. We start with an audit. Ask yourself, where did I first see this behavior? Who am I imitating emotionally? What did I inherit that I never gave consent to? That's another thing. Was it yours to begin with? Probably not. Do you have to keep it? Definitely not. Choose it. Then you want to remix our thought identity. Some of the old thoughts. This is just who I am. This is how I've always been. Oh, I love this one right here. Look, it's not that deep. Oh, it is. Here's a new thought to try on. What I didn't confront, I confirmed. I inherited it, but I don't have to install it. I will not become the system I said I'd heal from. and you want to re-record. This is our action portion. We got the emotional piece, the memory, we got the thought. Now we got to take some action. Identify one infection today, one leak, one habit, one sin, one compromise. Speak it, confess it. Don't explain it, just expose it. Remove the old move with a new clean action. Install a physical signal. Run, lift, write, call, pray. Break the cycle by acting out the opposite. I referenced it in our teachings. The minute you identify what it is, you are immediately identifying what it isn't. When you are on one level, the polarity and the what you cannot easier said in language, opposite of where you're at is available to you. So whatever you're doing that's not conducive to this type of lifestyle you want, that is explicitly telling you what to do, and that you stop doing what you're doing and do the opposite. If you're struggling with your physical body, you probably got to go move your physical body. If you're struggling being creative, you might want to start writing things down. If you're struggling in your career, you might want to learn new skills. If you're struggling in your relationships, you might want to stop walking away. And what happens when you walk away or when you go the opposite direction? You walk into it. Look, this ain't just your struggle. It's somebody else's sickness that you normalized. But today, you don't have to be a carrier. You don't need to find a cure. You are the cure if you're willing to bleed out the lie. You're not just called to remember, you're called to clean the code. Because some of you are moving holy, but leaking something toxic. And if you don't sterilize it now, you'll baptize your bloodline in what broke you. Sealed systems don't spread sickness. They reroute it back to the source. Own it or be owned by it. You either run the system or the system runs you. Change your mind, change your life. I am who I say I am. Do you and stay rich.